Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are digging into a massive demographic shift that is completely redrawing the map of the American dream. We're going to break down the data on exactly why Black families are moving to the suburbs at unprecedented rates, and, maybe more importantly, what actually happens once they arrive. So let's kick things off with a pretty fundamental question. Where exactly is housing opportunity found in America today? Because if you look closely, the actual geography of where people build wealth and raise their families has fundamentally changed. For decades, we've had this incredibly sticky cultural stereotype of the suburb, right? The exclusive white picket fence. But the data reveals a completely layered and diverse reality today. Far from that 1950s myth, the actual majority of Black and Hispanic metropolitan residents live in suburban areas right now. To figure out how we got here, we kind of have to look back at the history. The 1944 GI Bill absolutely fueled post-war home building, but explicit racial covenants kept those new, booming neighborhoods segregated. When those covenants were finally banned in 1968, municipalities pivoted. They shifted to exclusionary socioeconomic zoning, things like minimum lot sizes, which artificially inflated housing costs and ultimately maintained a separation based on income.
Section 1. A new Great Migration.
Economists from Notre Dame and the University of Illinois are actually calling this a demographic shift as massive as the post-World War II Great Migration. Just think about this. Over the past decade, 100% of suburban growth in major metros came from people of color. The Hispanic suburban population grew by 5.7 million, Asian populations by 3 million, and Black populations by 2 million. Meanwhile, the white suburban population actually declined by 2.2 million during that exact same timeframe. We are seeing a literal inversion in where Black families choose to live. Back in 1970, nearly half of all Black individuals in the U.S. resided in a large city. Fast forward to today, that number has plummeted down to 25%, while the suburban share has absolutely skyrocketed. And it really all boils down to this one crucial threshold: 54%. According to the 2020 census data analyzed by Brookings, 54% of all Black metropolitan residents now live in the suburbs. That means we have crossed the majority threshold for the first time in American history. The center of gravity for Black metropolitan life is officially suburban.
Section 2. Why are families moving?
So what's actually pulling families out of the urban core? Well, according to a Notre Dame study, 60% of this suburbanization is driven by the search for better neighborhood amenities and schools. Parents just want better resources for their kids. Another 30% is drawn by housing affordability and a really vital decrease in housing discrimination, which makes these suburban markets far more accessible than they ever were in previous generations. But they aren't just being pulled, they're actively being pushed. Structural economic forces are completely reshaping things. By the end of the 2000s, 43% of jobs in large metros had decentralized, moving more than 10 miles away from downtown. You add in rapid urban gentrification, skyrocketing central city rents, and the fact that roughly half of all Section 8 housing vouchers are now located out in the suburbs, and the push outward becomes pretty undeniable.
Section 3. The uneven suburban reality.
Now, here's where the reality gets a bit complicated. Unlike past migrations, affluent residents aren't really leaving the suburbs today. Because modern white flight is significantly lower than it used to be, housing prices in premium neighborhoods stay incredibly high. And this heavily stratifies the incoming population by income. So while affluent families can access premium neighborhoods, poorer families are frequently priced out and funneled into older, stagnating inner-ring suburbs. The neighborhood quality gap here is honestly staggering. Affluent Black and Hispanic households earning over $75,000 a year often still reside in suburban neighborhoods with higher poverty rates and lower performing schools than white households earning under $40,000 a year. Individual household income simply isn't enough to overcome legacy residential segregation.
Section 4. New challenges in suburbia.
This suburbanization of poverty is clashing head-on with a landscape built pretty much exclusively for cars, alongside a drastically thin nonprofit safety net. In many suburban towns, there literally isn't a single social service nonprofit. There's a severe lack of food pantries and employment service providers. When you combine this lack of support with extreme car dependency, everyday emergencies, like just a single car breaking down, can suddenly become completely catastrophic for a family. And that lack of a safety net?
It's fueling a rising wave of suburban evictions. While urban evictions have remained relatively stable over time, research across 74 metros shows suburban evictions are steadily rising, and they're disproportionately impacting Black renters. In a lot of places today, an eviction is now just as likely to happen in a quiet suburb as it is in a dense city. To make things even more complex, local governments are now actively partnering with developers to densify these older suburbs. Planners call this suburban gentrification. It's basically retrofitting low-density areas into high-density, mixed-use developments to attract wealthier consumers. But for the families already living there, it feels like a direct threat, seemingly designed to result in their displacement all over again. Obviously, this has sparked some really intense grassroots mobilization. Scholar Willow Lung Amam actually calls this the fight for the right to suburbia. Communities that move to the suburbs seeking stability are now organizing across both racial and class lines. They're fighting to ensure they can actually stay in place and benefit from these new neighborhood investments, rather than just being pushed out. So as we wrap up this explainer, we really have to ask ourselves a huge question. Will the modern American suburb fulfill its promise of opportunity, or simply become the next frontier for economic displacement? The demographics of the nation have forever shifted, for sure. Whether our suburban infrastructure can actually support this new diverse reality, well, that is arguably the defining housing question of our time.